Hello children, I hope you are doing well. Welcome to Study with Sudhir, your digital classroom. And today we are going to be focusing on a story by Ernest Hemingway, which is called Old Man at the Bridge. This is part of the ICSE class 9 as well as class 10 syllabus. And this is a poem, this is a story which focuses on the theme of war and of course also showcases and emphasizes and underlines the concern and compassion towards pet animals. But we will come to all that, but I hope you have first subscribed to the YouTube channel and also pressed on the bell icon so that you can get regular updates. And I would want you to share this video with your fellow classmates and also your friends so that more people, more students can actually benefit from the explanation, from the very detailed explanation that we give of every story and poem in this particular YouTube channel. So without wasting any time, let's get started. As I said, this is a story written by Ernest Hemingway, who was a war correspondent during the Spanish Civil War. So this story is told in first person and therefore it's very important. It talks about a particular incident which took place during an Easter Sunday stopover at the Ebro River, where Ernest Hemingway was reporting as a war correspondent. So it is a first person account. It gives it a sense of realism, it gives it a sense of authenticity, and therefore it makes it a very real war story set in the period of war while talking about human values and the virtue of compassion. So you will need to get that perspective right while you are actually reading this story. And the box before the story, it's important to read that to get a context to the period in which the story was written. It says that it demonstrates the power of narrative art. That is art form as a way of narration, that is narrating a particular incident that took place in his life. Hemingway takes a small ordinary detail in a situation and through the art of storytelling transforms it into a powerful story about the tragedy of war. The tragedy of war, please underline that phrase. The old man becomes a symbol of the countless civilian victims of war, those who are without politics. Those who have absolutely no stake in the war that is being fought between two warring countries or between two enemies. The old man becomes what we call collateral damage. He has no direct stake, but he gets affected as a result of this battle that is being fought. And he's displaced, he's disoriented, as you will see in the story, and he's alone and he's faced with the inevitability of death, that he knows death is very near for reasons that he has absolutely no control over, and he has not done anything that should contribute to his death, but because of something else he is becoming the collateral damage. So that's the larger theme of war that is being focused in the story by Ernest Hemingway, and that's what we will come to. And as I said, it is a very real story, and the fact that it is so real comes out very, very strongly in this particular short story. As the box also said, it reflects on the horrors of war on the innocent civilians and how it affects their lives and families. So let's get started. Incidentally, this is the second anti-war theme poem oblique story that is part of a syllabus. You would remember after Blenheim, which we have already discussed. The video is already there as part of Study with Sudhir YouTube channel, which also spoke about the perils of war and about how different people get affected, civilians get affected when two warring countries, two warring armies clash against each other. So an old man with steel-rimmed spectacles and very dusty clothes sat by the side of the road. So you get a sense of the description of the man. And the fact that the person is a journalist actually adds that kind of authenticity to the description, because it is someone who is seen firsthand before him. An old man with steel-rimmed spectacles and very dusty clothes sat by the side of the road. There was a pontoon bridge across the river and carts, trucks and men, women and children were crossing it. What's a pontoon bridge? Pontoon bridge is made of large hollow containers which are filled with air. So it's a kind of a rickety kind of a bridge which is used mostly during war or in extremely remote or rural areas in order to cross a water body. There is a pontoon bridge across the river and carts, trucks and men, women and children were crossing it. The mule-drawn carts staggered up the steep bank from the bridge, with soldiers helping push against the spokes of the wheel. So you get an idea about how the soldiers are trying to push the spokes of the wheels of the cart in order to ensure that they are able to get across that steep incline of the bridge onto the main part so that they can go to the other end of the river. Staggered again because it's a pontoon bridge, which I said is a little bit of a rickety kind of a bridge structure, and that's the reason why these mule drawn carts, mule again an animal like a donkey which is used to kind of take loads and drive the carts. Staggered means it's not a very even kind of a walk. The trucks ground up and away, heading out of it all, and the peasants plodded along in the ankle-deep dust. But the old man sat there without moving. He was too tired to go any further. So he sat there without moving because he was just too tired to go any further, and there was a lot of dust which is kind of coming up, which is one of the reasons why his clothes were also very dusty, as has been explained right in the first line. It was my business to cross the bridge. Why was his business to cross the bridge? Explore the bridge beyond and find out to what point the enemy had advanced. Now, while we know that Hemingway had served as a war correspondent, it's also possible in this particular narration he's taking on the role of a soldier. It's quite possible. So it was my business to cross the bridge, explore the bridgehead beyond, and find out to what point the enemy had advanced. So he was there in charge of the bridge to see to what extent the enemy had advanced. I did this and returned over the bridge. There were not so many carts now and very few people on foot, but the old man was still there. So many people had actually crossed by, but the old man was still sitting somewhere in the center of the bridge. Where do you come from? I asked him. So he strikes up a conversation with the old man. From San Carlos, he said, and smiled. Now the smiled is important. He's smiling because there is a sense of positivity the mention of his hometown brings to the old man. He's from San Carlos, and the moment he actually mentions the name of his hometown, it actually makes him a little happy, makes him feel positive, makes him smile. That was his native town, and so it gave him great pleasure to mention it, and he smiled. I was taking care of animals, he explained. Oh, I said, not quite understanding. He says, I was taking care of animals. So he just assumes that is probably some kind of a shepherd, which is why he's saying that I was taking care of animals. Yes, he said, I stayed, you see, taking care of animals. I was the last one to leave the town of San Carlos. So San Carlos is a town which is nearby, and this particular old man was the last person to leave the town, and he left the town last because till then he was taking care of his animals. He did not look like a shepherd or nor a herdsman, and I looked at his black dusty clothes and his great dusty face and his steel-rimmed spectacles and said, what animals were they? So two things here. He's emphasizing the description all over again, emphasizing that his clothes were dirty and the color of his clothes was black. His face was grey in dust, and also he was wearing steel-rimmed spectacles. So again, it kind of indicates not very well off if his spectacles rim were made of steel. Various animals, he said, and shook his head when he asked what animals were they. I had to leave them. I was watching so now the narrator is saying, I was watching the bridge and the African looking country of the Ebro Delta and wondering how long now it would be before we would see the enemy, and listening all the while for the first noises that would signal that ever mysterious event called contact. And the old man still sat there. So it suggests that the enemy is somewhere near, or at least the narrator thinks that the enemy is somewhere very, very near. And he's kind of looking to pick up those noises which he has been trained to pick up either as a soldier or as a war correspondent, which will kind of indicate that the enemy is almost at the doorstep, that is almost about to cross the pontoon bridge from the other side. What animals were they? So he continues, since he does not see that, he continues with his conversation with the old man. And if you recall, he has already asked that question before. What animals were they? So it means that the soldier, the narrator's attention is a little distracted. He's distracted because he's trying to do two things at the same time. He's trying to strike up a conversation and get information out of the old man. At the same time, he's also looking for noises that he would pick up, which will indicate that the enemy is coming. He's also looking around at the same time. So you can imagine him standing at the bridge, the old man sitting, while this fellow is, the narrator is looking here and there. So his complete attention is not on what he has asked the old man or what the old man has already told him. So the old man has already told him that there are various animals and that he had to leave them, but he repeats the question. So with this very subtle way of him repeating a question, the narrator, the author is able to kind of give us a picture of the distracted mind of the narrator. What animals were they? I asked. There were 3 animals altogether, he explained, the old man. There were 2 goats and a cat, and then there were 4 pairs of pigeons. And you had to leave them, I asked. Yes, because of the artillery. Artillery, which is an arm of the army, essentially to indulge in shelling of enemy territory. The captain told me to go because of the artillery. So the captain told him to go because there will be artillery fire, as a result of which the homes etc. would get destroyed because of the artillery fire. So it would not be safe for him to continue to stay there, which is why the captain of that particular area had asked him to move out, the army captain, which is essentially referring to bombing of that area. And you have no family, I asked, watching the far end of the bridge where a few last carts were hurrying down the slope of the bank. No, he said, only the animals, I stated. The cat, of course, will be all right. A cat can look out for itself, but I cannot think what will become of the other. So when he says that the cat can look after itself, he's essentially trying to he's showing a knowledge of the behavior, animal behavior, about how different animals and birds essentially react when faced with danger. So he believes that the cat can look after itself, nothing really will happen to it, but he's concerned about the other animals, which is essentially the goats and the 4 pairs of pigeons. What politics have you? Now the narrator changes the course of the discussion or the conversation that is having with the old man, and he asks him about which side of the political divide that he lean on. I am without politics. So he's just like any other common man who is not really dabbling in politics, or he does not kind of lean either towards the left or the right or is to the center. I am 76 years old. I have come 12 kilometers now. That is, San Carlos is 12 kilometers from that particular bridge. And I think now I can go no further. So he's just too tired. He's 76 years old. His body is not able to cope. He's not able to walk any further, which is why he has sat down. This is not a good place to stop, I said. So he tells him that this is dangerous. This is not a safe territory. So you need to move out from this place. If you can make it, there are trucks up the road where it forks for Tortosa. Tortosa is another place. So it also, this particular line to say that this is not a safe territory for you to be in, and that you need to move on, and if you move towards the next fork, you may find trucks which will take you towards Tortosa. So it shows a particular concern on part of the narrator. I will wait a while, he said, and then I will go. Where do the trucks go? Towards Barcelona. Barcelona as in Spain. So he says, I will wait for a while, but it nevertheless takes the information as to where the trucks will take him to. So he says the trucks will take him all the way towards Barcelona. I know no one in that direction. But thank you very much. Thank you again very much. So it says 2 things, that his area of contacts etc. was limited to San Carlos. That's where his native town had been, and he says that he doesn't know anyone in Barcelona, which is the biggest city in Spain. He looked at me very blankly and tiredly, then said, having to share his worry with someone, the cat will be all right, I'm sure. So he repeats himself. So it kind of, at that age of 76, he kind of displays a tendency to repeat himself without realizing that he's already given that bit of information. There is no need to be unquiet about the cat, but the others. Now, what do you think about the others? Why, they'll probably come through it all right. Now, the narrator doesn't think much of it. He says, well, I think they will all come out of it all right. You think so? He wants to be almost reassured and also wants to cross-check whether the narrator is sure about what he is saying. Why not? I said, watching the far bank where now there were no carts. So, no carts as in the last cart has actually passed off. So, only these 2 people are still left on that particular bridge, and you can still see that he's continuing to do 2 things at the same time. Engage in a conversation with the old man and also looking out for the enemy and looking out whether the last of the carts have left from the pontoon bridge. But what will they do under the artillery when I was told to leave because of the artillery? So the old man is worried that while he was asked by the captain to leave because of the artillery attacks, what will happen to his animals? The cat, he thinks, will take care of itself, but what happens to the pigeons and the goats? Did you leave the dove cage unlocked? I asked. Yes. Then they will fly. Yes, certainly they will fly, but the others. So the pigeons also, he thinks that since he has left the cage open, they will fly off, so they should also be safe. But what will happen to the 2 goats? It's better not to think about the others, he said. If you are rested, I would go. get up and try to walk now. So the narrator says that if you are arrested, I would go, and you should also get up and try to move out from here, because obviously this is not a safe place for you to be in. Thank you, he said, and got to his feet, swayed from side to side. You can well imagine an elderly person getting up and not able to his feet are not having the strength for him to get up. And he sways from side to side, not able to control the body properly, and sits down again, and then sat down backwards in the dust. I was taking care of animals, he said dully, but no longer to me. I was only taking care of the animals. This line is extremely significant. He says, I was only taking care of the animals. That's the only thing he had done. So he feels very aggrieved that while he had nothing to do with this entire war that was taking place in Spain, why was it that he had been displaced and removed from his animals that he loved so dearly, the cat, the pigeons and the goats? So basically he says that I was only looking after the animals. I wasn't doing anything. I am collateral damage. I had no role to play in this war, yet I am the one who is getting affected as a result of this war. So it shows a very real concern, and it's a very powerful sentence when he says, I was only taking care of the animals. There was nothing to do about him. The narrator is equally helpless, except for telling him that you should move away from here to safety. He cannot give him anything more than that advice. There is nothing more to do about him. It was Easter Sunday. Please make a note of it, because I'll explain about the significance of Easter Sunday. It was Easter Sunday, and the fascists were advancing towards the Ebro. It was a grey, overcast day. The color scheme, if you see, dust, grey face, grey overcast sky, black coat with dusty black coat, steel rimmed spectacles. You see, there is no color. Ernest Hemingway has not put any color in the frame at all. It's all grey, black, gloomy is the kind of impression that the author is trying to convey through the choice of colors that he has used in this particular story. So do make a note of it. Also to kind of make the point that war is like that. It does not kind of give you any kind of feeling of being vibrant. There is no vibrancy that we associate normally with bright colors. Here everything is black or grey. It was a grey overcast day with a low ceiling, so their planes were not up. Right? So it was overcast, there was a lot of cloud cover, which is why probably the planes were not up. That and the fact that the cats know how to look after themselves was all the good luck that old man would ever have. I mean, cats we generally know have 9 lives, at least that's what the phrase goes. So he thinks that the cats will take care of themselves, and that seemed to be the only good luck that the old man would have. Meaning to say, he leaves the story on a very despondent note that he does not think that the old man will survive, especially when the enemy advances towards the pontoon bridge on the Ebro River. He says that's the only piece of luck that the old man could have had. And the fact that the planes were not up, so it may probably take a while before the enemy reaches there. But that and the fact about the cats being able to look after themselves will be the only good luck that the old man would have. Okay, so now just let's have a quick run through the explanation of some of the aspects of this particular story. Now, as I said, the old man is among the civilian population who suffer as a result of no fault of theirs, and they are the innocent victims of a war, the casualties among the civilian population. The love for one's native town, that's one of the themes of this particular story. Basically, whenever the moment San Carlos is mentioned, which is at a distance of about 12 kilometers from the point at the bridge, that's the only time when his face is delighted. It kind of brightens up, because he speaks about San Carlos with a lot of pride and pleasure, and also with a tinge of sadness, because he has been forced to leave his native place because of the approaching enemy forces, and more importantly because the captain has told him that there will be artillery attacks on San Carlos, so it's not safe for him to be living there anymore. The bridge is also some kind of a metaphor, because we always say that we'll cross the bridge when we come to it. Now the man has reached the bridge. Will he be able to cross it? And the bridge becomes a metaphor, because that becomes a connecting point between life and possible death, because the author tells at the end that was the only piece of good luck. So he's not very positive about him living for long after this particular encounter that he has had with the old man. But the fact that the bridge becomes a metaphor for what could possibly happen after this particular encounter with the narrator. That's something which you have to look at. The narrator himself, as you spoke, he either is a war correspondent or he's possibly a soldier himself. But at the same time, he's a sympathetic listener, but because he's also looking after some other duty, he's a little bit of a distracted kind of person. He understands and empathizes with the old man's empathy and concern for his animals, but he's not able to have the same level of empathy because he thinks that, well, the cat will look, he says the cat will look after himself, he says the pigeons will fly off, so what's the big deal? That's the kind of an attitude that the narrator has towards the animals of the old goat, of the old man. Now, I mentioned about Easter Sunday, which you need to underline. Now, the ironical part is that Easter Sunday is when Jesus Christ rose from the dead, that is on the third day after he was crucified. But here on Easter Sunday is when possibly the old man is going to be nearing his end. I mean, the moment the sky is clear, the enemy forces will advance and he may not have much of a chance to survive. So it's a time of inevitable death with the approaching enemy forces on that particular day, possibly on Easter Day. So Easter Day, which is usually kind of for Christians, it's usually seen as a day of rebirth. In this case, it may be a case of inevitable death for the old man. Speak about the old man's physical condition, frail nature, because of which he is not able to get up. But at the same time, it's also a matter of extreme mental fatigue, because of which he is not able to cope. He's tired, he's worried, he's sad that he had to leave his home and his animals for no fault of his, for no reason. I mean, he has not done anything which kind of indicates a direct taking part in the war. So it's also a sense of mental fatigue and physical fatigue, which is what is shown in his entire personality. And of course, other big thing which you know about him is his love and concern for the animals, and the fact that he feels sad that he is becoming collateral damage in this entire war. Hemingway has humanized him by showing his concern for the animals and also by showing his love and pride about his hometown, which is San Carlos. The other aspect about the old man, which you should also note, which is an interesting observation to make, is that he doesn't have much of social ties. The moment he mentions Barcelona, he says that no, I don't know anyone out there. So it shows that probably he had only animals. He doesn't talk of any other human being. He doesn't talk about any other family member. So his animals are the only people or beings that he was in contact with. So it kind of indicates a lack of close social ties. It's also, while the man avoids talking about death, he doesn't talk about death at any point in time, but there is a certain level of anxiety also which is kind of visible while he talks more about his animals, but he also shows that he's not able to get up and go. So why it shows that he kind of is reconciled to the fact that death is probably going to be near and inevitable, but he's very clear that he has no role to play in politics. So what Hemingway so brilliantly has shown in this short story is that he's depicted the horror of war without actually showing any bloodshed. Even in the poem After Blenheim, we were at least shown a skull, which is kind of an horrific thing to see, and especially when young children are involved. But here you see there is absolutely no bloodshed which is shown in this depicted in the story. But without showing any bloodshed, just by a discussion between a narrator and the old man, Hemingway has managed to successfully bring out the horrors of war and about the kind of collateral damage it kind of wreaks on people who have nothing to do with it. So we spoke about the collateral damage, about the anxiety for the animals. Also the fact that I briefly mentioned that the narrator is not able to share the same level of concern as the old man for the animals, because when he says that when he asks him, you think so that the cat will be safe, he says, yeah, why not? So it's almost like not a very sincere kind of a response, slightly bordering on the insincere. And the final thing is that the battlefield is really a place without any humanity or with any redemption. People are just killed. There is no humanity, there is no place, it's not a place for any kind of emotions. So Hemingway notes at the end of the stories that the day is Easter Sunday, the day of Christ's resurrection, which evokes the possibility of eternal salvation for mankind. By contrast, while these two men both clearly desire to save lives, the animals, and in his case the old man and the other people, so that everyone has gone away safely, the circumstances of war make them unable to succeed in even simple acts of salvation. So the war is overpowering, it does not enable them to ensure that everyone in this world is safe and does not die as a result of the battle or war. So caring for animals or making an old man cross the bridge, in this case, is what the narrator and the old man are doing. So that's how Hemingway suggests that the battlefield is really a place without any redemption and without any empathy for humanity, right? So that's essentially the explanation of this short story Old Man at the Bridge by Ernest Hemingway. If you have any doubts, do write in the comment section, but I would assume that you should be able to kind of get to the great depiction, the words that he has used, underline the keywords so that you are able to use it in the story and give the different kind of interpretations to different small aspects of the story, which will only enrich your answers in the examination paper that much more. Thank you very much for watching.